Welcome to week 2, and we're going to start off the week by talking about cohesiveness with our groups. Cohesiveness is the degree to which members are attracted to each other and they're motivated to stay in the group. Cohesiveness is important because it's been found that it's really related to the group's productivity. Groups may become more cohesive when they spend a lot of time together and when the group size is small, or if the group has experienced some external threats. It also, the cohesiveness, let's go back to the cohesiveness and the productivity. Performance-related norms established in the groups are really the key variable between cohesiveness and productivity. And I'm going to let you let's look at this relationship of cohesiveness to the productivity. It's really interesting to me when we look at this because we really want to encourage cohesiveness with our teams or with our groups. But if you look at the highest productivity comes, look there, if you have high cohesiveness, but you also have to have performance norms to go with that. So it's interesting when I look at really the lowest productivity on this chart, if we look at that, our lowest productivity is going to come whenever we have low performance norms, but we have high cohesiveness. So the group really enjoys being together. We know that, but there's no performance norms that are out there for them. So what happens is they just slack off. So really, you're going to have better productivity if you have high performance norms, but even low cohesiveness. So it's interesting to track that and look at it, that we just got to be careful when we're looking at it. We got to make sure that we have high performance norms that are out there, that people know what they're working towards. So how in the world do we really encourage cohesiveness? The first thing that we can do is we need to make our groups smaller, because it's hard to have that cohesiveness if you have larger groups. Also, you need to encourage the group members to agree with the group goals. And then just going back, if you remember the Hawthorne studies, increase the time that they spend together. Also, and it relates again to the Hawthorne studies, is increase the status and perceived difficulty of the group membership. So you're elite. You're put here because you're special. You can also stimulate competition with other groups, and this is something that we did in the MBA program, especially when we worked in our marketing class and set up simulation, that there would be a winner and there would be a loser, and all they were playing for or trying to win was a t-shirt, but it was very cutthroat and ruthless trying to win that t-shirt and to win just the accolades of being the best group in that class. Also, we've studied that if you give rewards to the group rather than individual members, that can increase cohesiveness. And then, again, relating back to the Hawthorne studies, you can physically isolate that group. And when we talk about it with groups, we've talked a lot about it, the group decision making. We know that the strengths of the group decision making is we know that it generates more complete information, more knowledge. We also get an increased diversity, not just one person's or one individual's opinion. We also know that we get an increased acceptance of a solution. So people will buy in and they feel like they have ownership. But then again, there's weaknesses when it comes to group decision making. We know that there is and are conformity pressures. We looked at it last week, the ASH studies. And we also know that discussions can be dominated by one or more of the members. So we've got to make sure that we include everyone in that decision. And also just the ambiguous responsibility for the final outcome. People can hide in groups. Again, that social loafing can come up, so we've got to be careful with that. And if we look at the effectiveness versus efficiency, and I had a professor years and years ago, Dr. Steve Rendell, and he talked about effective versus efficient. And efficient is doing things right. Effective is doing the right thing. So what we've got to do, we need effectiveness. We need accuracy. We know that a group is better than the average individual, but worse than the most accurate group member. So we know that there's one person in that group that probably would make a better decision, but the group's average is better. People will buy in. We know again that speed of the individuals is faster, but again, there's more buy-in when it comes from a group. Creativity, hands down, groups are better because you get more opinions that go into it. And then the degree of acceptance is definitely better whenever you have a group, because it's not just one person that's come up with that solution. But efficiency, groups are generally less efficient than individual decision makers. One of the few exceptions to that is when the decision requires a large quantity of diverse input, where you really need the diversity that goes in with it. I'm going to lecture for just a little bit on groupthink, and then I'm going to have you watch a video, and I have put up a handout also of the 8 symptoms of groupthink. And this, to me, is one of the most interesting phenomenons when it comes with group decision making and what happens when groups become very familiar with each other and groups have operated together for a long period of time. And what happens, groupthink, it really is, it occurs when group members really become so enamored in syncing concurrence with the norm that their desire for consensus overrides the realistic of appraisal. So what happens is they've been together for a long time and they're very, very successful. So what happens in groupthink, and you probably maybe have been a part of a group that's done this, that's been together for a long time, but group members rationalize any resistance to their assumptions. They think that people are either with them or against them. And so if you speak out, that you are really against that group. And then the members that are part of that group pressure any doubters to support the alternative favored by the majority. Doubters also keep silent about any misgivings and minimize their importance. And the group interprets members' silence as a yes vote for the majority. We do know that groupthink occurs most often when a clear group identity exists. And it's a clear group. It's that superstar group that's always made the greatest decisions, that always does everything wonderfully. But we know that there's not perfection in this world and that sometimes groups mess up. And we're going to watch a video, the Challenger explosion. So you can look at that and really see the disaster that happened just because of a group that would not make that decision. Members hold a positive image of their group that they want to protect. They don't want anyone speaking out against that group. And the group perceives a collective threat to this positive image. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to let you watch a video. It's an hour-long video, so be prepared when you get into it, about the Challenger explosion. That's probably one of the best examples that's out there about groupthink. The Bay of Pigs is one also. Pearl Harbor is another example of that. But we're going to take a break here, and I want you guys to watch the video on the Challenger explosion, and then we will come back and just talk a little bit more about groupthink and how we can try to prevent it from happening.